Aye, the lantern still burns. In the quiet valley nestled between old hills, there sat a village nearly forgotten by time. The roads were dusty and narrow, the houses leaned a little from age, and the wind often brought the scent of firewood and the sound of distant bells. In this village lived Mara, a woman in her early 60s, with hair that had long turned silver and hands lined with stories. She lived alone at the farthest edge of the village, in a cottage built by her grandfather. On her porch hung a lantern, not an electric one, not a plastic thing bought in a store, but a heavy, glass-paned iron lantern, soot-darkened, and still lit each night with oil and a match. The villagers called it the last lantern. Every other home had switched to electric lights or solar lanterns, but Mara had kept the old flame alive. Every dusk, no matter the weather, she walked outside, turned the knob gently, and struck a single match. The flame flickered, then stood tall. It was a ritual, a quiet promise. 2. Why the lantern mattered. Children often ask their parents why Mara still used such an old thing. The parents would shrug or smile, saying, "Ask her, she'll tell you, if you bring her a good question." Mara liked questions. She believed questions, more than answers, told you about a person. One autumn day, young Lena from the neighboring house wandered up to Mara's porch with a mug of warm cider. "Why don't you change the lantern?" Lena asked. Mara leaned back in her wooden chair, looking toward the hills. "Because changing it would mean forgetting." "Forget what?" "The night my father came home from the war. That was the first time I saw the lantern lit. The whole village was dark, no electricity back then, but my mother lit the lantern and left it by the road so he could find his way home." Lena sipped her cider, watching the lantern sway slightly with the wind. "That little light," Mara continued, "meant someone was waiting, that they were not alone in the dark."
3. The way the village changed. Over the years, the village shifted. Young people left for the city, the old market square grew quieter, and shops closed. The post office became a storage unit. Even the chapel's bell stopped ringing after the priest retired. But Mara's lantern remained. It became a kind of symbol, unofficial, unspoken. When someone lost a family member, they would sometimes glance toward her porch to see the flame still burning. When a baby was born, it felt like the lantern nodded in welcome. Once a boy ran away from home after an argument with his parents. No one could find him until just after midnight, when he returned, muddy, tired, but safe. "I saw the lantern," he said, barely whispering. "I knew I could come home." Mara never bragged about these things. She simply kept lighting the lantern, every dusk, every season. It was enough.
4. A visit from the council. One rainy morning, the village council visited Mara. They stood politely on her porch, raincoats dripping and expressions a mix of courtesy and concern. "Good morning, Mara," said Tomas, the mayor. "Morning," she replied, offering them a towel. "We wanted to talk about the lantern," he said, clearing his throat. "There's a new initiative, energy conservation, funding for green upgrades. You know how things go." She nodded, unsurprised. "We can help install a solar panel, perhaps even a newer lamp, less fire hazard, safer." Mara looked at the lantern, then back at them. "Do you think the flame is dangerous?"
Tomas hesitated. Not dangerous, but outdated. Mara smiled, not offended. Some things are worth keeping, even if they're old. The council exchanged looks, then stepped off the porch with polite goodbyes. They didn't push further. That night, the lantern burned as always, unmoved by progress, unshaken by policy.
5. A letter from far away. One winter evening, as frost began to creep along the windows and the hills turned white, Mara received a letter. The envelope was soft with travel and marked with stamps from a distant country. It was from Eli, her childhood friend who had moved to the city decades ago. He had visited often when they were young, but hadn't returned in years. "I've been ill," he wrote, "and I wanted to tell you something while I still have the words. I never forgot the nights we sat on your porch watching the lantern. It made me believe the world still had quiet corners. Even in this noisy, fast place where I live now, I still see the flame in my memory." Mara folded the letter and placed it in her drawer with others like it. Notes, thank you cards, even poems people had written about the lantern. The drawer was nearly full now. She did not read them often, but she kept them all the same. Proof that small things could still mean everything.
6. When the flame went out. One spring, during a fierce storm that shook trees and tore at the roof tiles, the lantern's glass cracked. Mara had brought it inside to protect it, but in the sudden gust of wind and rain, she stumbled. The lantern hit the floor with a dull, sad clang. The wick was soaked. The glass pane fell in shards. For the first time in decades, the porch remained dark that night. People noticed. Some came by the next morning with small gifts, flowers, tools, even an offer to fix the lantern. Mara thanked them all, gently refusing the help. She wasn't sad, not quite. That night she sat on the porch without the flame. The silence felt different, emptier, colder. Then Lena returned, now taller, holding something behind her back. "I made you something," she said, revealing a new lantern. It wasn't iron or glass. It was carved from wood with a clever design to shield the flame from wind. Mara smiled, deeply moved. "It's beautiful." "I'm not trying to replace the old one," Lena said, "but I thought maybe the light matters more than the lamp." Mara nodded. "You've grown wise." And that evening they lit the new lantern together. It glowed warmly, and the village slept a little easier.
Years passed. Mara grew slower, her steps smaller, but her hands still struck the match each night. Until one autumn, her chair sat empty. The villagers noticed. A hush came over the place, like leaves pausing in midair. A week passed, then another. On the third week, Lena climbed the porch steps and found a note beneath the chair. It was addressed simply, "To the keeper of the lantern." Inside, Mara had written, "If you are reading this, I am probably no longer there to light the flame, but that does not mean it must go out. The lantern was never about me, it was about the light. If you wish, keep it going, or start your own flame, your own reason to wait for the dusk and greet the dark with warmth. It only takes one match." Lena folded the note and stood in silence. Then she lit the lantern, and from that night on, the flame stayed.
8. A quiet tradition. Time moved, as it does. Children became parents, fields changed hands, and the old cottages leaned a little more. But each night, The lantern on Mara's porch still glowed. Others followed. Soon there were more flames, on windowsills, in courtyards, even at the chapel again. No one declared it a tradition. No festival was made. It was quieter than that, more human. It was simply this, a light in the night, to say, you are not alone. You can come home. Someone is waiting. Even in the dark, we remember. The end.